What happens in estate planning when families go no contact? Hi, Nancy Beaubear here with a Gappy and Next Steps. There's a new trend, if you want to call it that. It's getting a lot of attention in the media these days. In fact, Oprah Winfrey did a whole program on it recently. And it's about when families go no contact. I guess that's a phrase that I wasn't really familiar with, but it describes what happens when families have disputes, disagreements, and they become estranged. And it really has a huge impact on your estate planning. It's becoming more and more common these days. And there's a lot of theories out there about why that happens. A lot of them, and it makes sense to me, is that our culture, our society these days is more about expressing how we feel. We are, and have been for decades, taught to get in touch with how we feel about what's going on. We see psychologists, we see psychiatrists, and we talk about what our issues are. You know, in my parents' time and other times, it was unheard of that you would speak out against the family. Even nowadays, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of things that go on in families, and they're big secrets. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors in families. We can have the neighbors, we can have our own families that we project the perfect image out to the outside world. But behind those closed doors, you don't know what the issues are. You don't know what's going on. Granted, sometimes it's just a differing opinion. But sometimes there are toxic relationships. And perhaps if the children were not treated well, they don't want to have anything to do with their parent any longer. Now, this can create a lot of problems when it comes to your estate planning. If you don't have anybody in your family that you are close to, what do you do when it comes to making your will and your power of attorney and your medical directive? Well, there are options. If you can't get along with anybody in your family, you can name a close friend who you trust. You can name a professional. There are options out there. But there are issues with the estate planning for all generations in a family. If you're the parent and you're creating your will, who do you leave as your heirs and beneficiaries? Or are you that parent that is angry because your child didn't do what you wanted, so you cut them out of the will? Now, there are laws that protect beneficiaries and heirs. In many jurisdictions, a spouse or children have the right to contest a will. Then the court will decide if the parent was justified in cutting that child out. So yes, while you could cut one of your children out of your will, make sure that you do it for the right reasons and that you express what those reasons are. Because if it does go to court, it's going to tie things up, it's going to cost more, and at the end of the day, there may not be anything left for anybody to inherit. Who do you name as your attorney on your power of attorney documents? Who's going to make those decisions for you? Again, you don't need to have a family member. You can have a close friend. You can have a professional organization. You can have a lawyer. You can have somebody else named. But you have to also understand that that person needs to understand how you would want things to go, and you have to trust that they would follow your direction. These are all complex issues, and I know some of the feedback that I have read has to do with the fact that calling this a trend really does a disservice. I mean, let's face it, there's always been dysfunction in families. There's always been stresses in families. You can't have a group of people who are individuals in an environment and not have disagreements. It's how you deal with those challenges. Now, I'm not talking about cases where there's extreme abuse or anything like that. What I'm talking about is when there are family disputes and they go unresolved and people become estranged. Those issues can be resolved. Maybe you need a mediator. Maybe you need to go for counseling as a group. But you can deal with that. This is becoming something that is happening more and more frequently in our society. It's certainly not the phenomenon that the media would have you think that it is, but it's not something to be ignored. Now, I'd just like to go back and revisit the issue of naming somebody on your legal documents anyway. I know that the default is always a family member. And of course, in most cases, that makes sense. But make sure that when you are choosing that person, that you're choosing the best person for the role. Don't just choose somebody to be the executor or your power of attorney or on your medical directive simply because they're the oldest child. They may not have the right temperament. They may not have the right skill set to fulfill those roles. And then you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're putting them in a position where they're not going to do their best. They're probably going to end up having difficulty and resenting the fact that they're named. So again, have those conversations. Have a family meeting, talk to your children, your nieces, nephews, whoever it is that you're planning on naming. Have that discussion. Let them know what's involved and ask them if they're comfortable taking on that role. If not, there are, as I say, there are professional organizations that can act. The issue with naming a trust company as your executor is that a trust company typically won't touch you if you don't have at least $1 million in your estate. The last statistics that I saw, the average estate in Canada was in the neighborhood of $635,000. So there's a lot of people who would not qualify to have a trust company manage their estate after they pass away. But there are people like me. I'm a certified executor advisor, and we can step into that role, or we can help your executor and walk them through what needs to be done and give them the guidance so that they have more confidence in fulfilling their obligations and their duties. So I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to suggest that if you are having some issues with your family dynamics, please communicate. Please get some mediation. Try to figure it out. Try to resolve the issues. None of us knows what tomorrow brings. None of us wakes up in the morning and says, I think today is the day I'm going to have a stroke. I don't want to be alarmist, but if something happened, are there things that were left unsaid? Would you have regrets? Revisit those, open the lines of communication, and see if you can resolve it. Thanks very much for joining me this week. I look forward to sharing more with you next time. Bye for now.